What's up, my threeple, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're back on Apex Legends, and this time, I'm going to be doing a video going over my thoughts on each weapon in the game and deciding if they're overrated or underrated, or perfectly in the middle. And this is all going to be based off of my opinion. So yeah, let's get into the video. So we're going to work our way from here all the way down there. So we're starting with the snipers. So first, the Sentinel. So the Sentinel, in my opinion, it is a really high-skilled weapon to use. Well, not necessarily too high-skilled. It's a little more difficult to use than the other snipers, in my opinion. Like, you have the Deadeye's Tempo, which helps bring up its skill gap, and the shield cells, being able to charge it up with 2 shield cells and such, that makes it really good for... Yep. It's really good with the disruptor feature. But personally, I don't really think it's too underrated or overrated. I would say it leans a little towards the center of the spectrum, honestly. Because it is a really good gun. Like, I don't think anyone can deny that. But, like, again, like, it's not, like, it's really precise. Like, you gotta be really, I guess, careful with your shots with this one. Lead them well. So it's a little bit high skilled, so I'd probably lean towards, well, yeah, let's just keep it in the center, because I feel like that's where it would belong on the spectrum. Next up, the charge rifle. Now the charge rifle, I think we all know the power this weapon holds. It's really annoying. It is really strong. It doesn't have much fall off damage or whatever. Like, it's just nuts. But it's not really that versatile, which makes me think it's slightly overrated. And the underrated part of it is like the hipfire. Like you can still like easily just hit a target and do a decent amount of damage, even like in the little hipfire mode. But you would really have to like keep track of your shots and such. Honestly, I think it's a tad bit overrated. But I think we all know what type of power this thing holds, so it's a little towards the center. Next up is the longbow. Personally, I think the longbow is underrated. It does really good damage, especially with headshots. And it can also be really like you really need to be able to get up close and, again, like lead your shots well. Like if you're just going up and down a zip line in a building and just this weapon, it can just feel so good, and if you get a quick scope with it, like honestly, longbow is probably my favorite sniper, and yeah, it's underrated in my opinion. Alright, now that we're done with the snipers, let's move on to the light weapons, and let's start off with the RE45. Now personally, I think the RE45 is a bit underrated. Like, it can do a decent amount of damage. Of course, it doesn't have the best DPS, but it is still reliable, especially like off drop, in my opinion. And you also have some decent strafe speed. And also, I really like the iron sights on this thing. You really get a clear view, like, with this weapon and such. And with the quick draw, like, it just makes it easy to like pull it out. It would make for a pretty decent secondary. Its recoil, I feel like, is a little bit kicky, but other than that, like, it does a decent amount of DPS if you can hit your shots and such. And it's pretty reliable, I'd say. It is definitely an underrated weapon. Next up, the P2020. Oh, whoops. I think we know that this is probably like the weakest weapon in the game, so I wouldn't really put it underrated or overrated, because I think we all know like what this tiny pistol can do. Not much. Like, it doesn't have like the best DPS. It is decent off drop, and they have buffed it a little bit to make it more reliable, but it's still like not really the best weapon in the game, and I don't think it ever will be. Next up, the R301. Personally, one of my favorites. I think we all know that it's like a really reliable weapon, really reliable choice to pick it up and whatever. I think we all know that, again, I think we all know that this is a really strong and great gun to use in pretty much a whole lot of different circumstances. It's also got some decent fire. Yeah. And personally, I'd probably say it's leaning towards underrated. But I'm actually starting to think that now it's kind of like just in the middle. Like, it's nor underrated or overrated. It's just, it's there in the center. We know its power. We know it's a great gun. And yeah. Next up, the R99. Now, the R99 I really like. It's really good gun. Kind of one of my go-tos. Not exactly. But yeah, despite how popular it is and like how powerful it is, I do feel like it's slightly overrated, or it might lean towards overrated. And the reason why I say this is mainly because of its fire rate. Like, yeah, it probably has one of the highest DPSs, but if you do not manage to land your shots with this thing, then that might be a little bit of a problem, especially with the fast DPS it has. Its recoil, though, is, if you get the hang of it and keep practicing it, then it will definitely be really easy. I pretty much always practice with R99 in the firing range, but personally, I think it's a little bit overrated just because, like, you really need to be aggressive when using this weapon. Like, it's mostly because of the skill ceiling, and you really need to land your shots and the fire rate. It just makes it a little bit overrated of a weapon. But it's still an amazing gun, nonetheless. Just because I say it's overrated doesn't mean it's bad. It is an amazing gun. One of my light ammo children. And anyways, up to the next weapon, the alternator. Now, personally, I think the alternator is a little bit underrated. It has a decent DPS, pretty good DPS, in my opinion, and its hipfire. Its hipfire is underrated, in my opinion. And tap firing can help in some circumstances, but I don't think it would ever help me in that situation, which just unfolded. Yeah, the alternator is a pretty reliable weapon. I would say it's a lot more reliable off drop, but the alternator can still be used well as a primary weapon, like, throughout an entire match. Like, I don't see too much wrong with this weapon. Sadly, it will be going into the care package with the Spitfire, as it seems, next season. And that's going to be a little sad. We'll at least will have, like, the disruptor rounds to make it insanely powerful. And also, the thing that is really good about the alternator is the recoil is really easy to control. Like, it's easy to get a hold of its recoil, and it is a really decent gun. I like it. Next up, we have the G7 Scout. G7 Scout, it's a pretty decent gun. Definitely one of the long-range masters and such. Like, the G7 Scout is a weapon to use in ranked and overall farm damage. It's a really good gun, in my opinion. I used to be on the hunt for these, like, a lot in Season 6 for some weird reason. Probably because I got the skin and it made me want to use it more. But anyways, back on topic. But yeah, the G7 Scout, it's really good at pretty much long ranges, damage farming, and such. Its hipfire can be good. You really gotta take control of the crosshair and such to make it hipfire actually work. But yeah, G7, it's a force to be reckoned with. It can be a nuisance. Like, yeah, it leans underrated, but I'm starting to think it's a little more in the center. But you know, I'll go with underrated because it just has so much power. Next up, we have the heavy weapons, and let us start off with the 30-30 repeater. Now, I feel like the 30-30 is a little bit underrated. Kind of like the G7, it's good at long ranges, and with like the recent buff it has with like, projectile speed, like it can make it just really easier to hit shots now. And thing charges up fat and it goes faster than DPS, so you can do a whole lot of damage. But yeah, it's, in my opinion, it's underrated. It's a pretty good gun. I'd probably say that it's like more of the mid to long range weapon. Well, if you have the shatter caps. And this also brings me back to like the underrated part. Like the shatter caps, they're really good up close. They become a shotgun, marksman, sniper, weapon, or whatever you want to call it. Well, so yeah, 30-30 in my opinion, underrated, does really good damage, and is pretty good at most ranges. And yeah, next up we have the Wingman. Personally, I have been trying to use the Wingman a lot more in arenas because I really wish to get better at this weapon. And I agree that the Wingman can be a really good high damage dealing weapon, but the thing that makes it a little bit overrated is primarily the skill ceiling when it comes to it. You have got to be really precise with your shots. You can be so with this thing. You really got to practice it, really get the hang of it, how it handles and such. But it can be a really good weapon in the right hands. Yeah, practice your aim, and this weapon will sure become like the perfect weapon and such. But just in general, it's a little bit overrated because of like that skill ceiling and how much you need to actually work with this weapon in order to like an insane weapon. Next up is the Spitfire. Spitfire, oh my god, this weapon is just disgusting, overrated. I don't know why people use it. Glad it's going in the care package next season. I can't even bother to go over that. Next up is the Hemlock. Now, personally, I think the Hemlock has kind of been overshadowed. I think it's an underrated weapon. Like, it's hipfire in my opinion. And it does a really good amount of damage. I think because like the Hemlock got a little bit of a nerf back then, like I feel like it just made people like, let's find some new other weapon. But really that didn't do much. It's still nuts. It's still a crazy weapon. The single fire is still really good as well. I don't know. Like, it's a really good gun, and I don't know if I like haven't really seen like people like not using it lately. But honestly, if you haven't picked up the Hemlock, you gotta give it a try. It's a really good weapon, like honestly. And the iron sights are but who cares about iron sights? Next up, we have the Flatline. Now, in my opinion, the Flatline is perfectly rated. Kind of leans underrated, but I'd say it's in the middle. Like, I think the Flatline can just be an insanely strong weapon. Fire a crazy weapon off drop. Honestly, it's a really good gun. One of my go-tos. I think anyone can see the strength in this weapon. And next up, let's move on to the energy weapons. Starting off with the Volt. Let me get rid of all of this. So the Volt, in my opinion, it's a really good SMG. And personally, I think it's the most reliable. Well, Alternator is a really reliable SMG. But the Volt is probably the most popular choice other than the Alternator. It's like second most popular SMG from the way I see it. And the Volt, honestly, I think it gets a little bit overshadowed by the R99. The Volt has a lot more of a consistent recoil, and it's a little more versatile as well. Like, you can pretty much have no recoil and just fry it like a longer range, and the ult speed is really good as well. Like the projectile speed. Well, that's pretty much for all energy weapons. Like, the projectile speed is like really quick and such. Yeah, the Volt is really good. I would probably say it's in the middle, although I was kind of leaning towards underrated. But I think we all know that the Volt is like a decent weapon that can be an easy go-to. And next up, the Devotion. Ooh, the big bad Devotion. Now, honestly, I think the Devotion hasn't really been getting much love from players lately. Like, this weapon is so powerful, still is super powerful, one of the most powerful guns in the game, but I feel like not many people are using it now. And why could that be? Well, one, like, the recoil can be a little bit strong, but I pretty much just nailed it there. But yeah, the Devotion's recoil can be a little bit of a kick, like, honestly, and I think probably might have something to do with turbocharger, I don't know, but I think it's the recoil that primarily makes people not really too invested in this weapon anymore. But it is insanely strong. Like, time to kill can be so insane on this thing, and the hipfire can also be really insane on this thing. Like, we all know the power of the Devotion, but it's just not really getting much use anymore. Like, people should just try frying with the Devotion. It's going through some tough times, not being picked up as much as if you would probably expect it to be picked up. Next up is the Havoc. Now, the Havoc has kind of turned out to be one of my favorite guns recently. I've been using it a lot in arenas. Like, the Havoc is just disgusting. It's still disgusting, and still a crazy weapon. Like, it's cheap as heck in arenas. Like, you can buy a level 0 Havoc in, like, the first round, then get yourself a battery and a medkit. And if you get, like, a kill, or a couple kills, or all the kills, and if you get some crafting materials, like, you can level up this thing up to, like, level 1, 2 in, like, the second round. You might be even to, like, if you get all those crafting materials, and if you get all them kills, you can even, like, max it out, which is just insane. And it's just an insane gun. Like, even without the turbo and extending mag, you can still kill someone, like, with only wasting half of the mag. Like, if you manage to land your shots. Okay, now that was not a good example, but if you're able to land your shots and such, like, the Havoc can still be, like, a really insane gun, and it's been insane for a long time now. I just feel like not many people are picking it up, and I think the reason why could be the recoil. Like, it's a little bit strong, but not totally. Like, if you practice with it enough, then, like, it's gonna become easy to you, and it'll just be insane. Like, and you can only, like, and if you land your shots and have, like, a gold purple mag, like, you'll only be wasting a third of your magazine, which is crazy with this weapon. Havoc is just so underrated. I don't know why anyone's using it personally. If you're watching this and just use the Havoc, it is a good time investment. Next up is the AllStars. Now, personally, I think the AllStars are underrated. I thought it was getting a good amount of attention, like, earlier on in the season when people knew this was, like, an insanely strong weapon. But honestly, I still think it needs some love. Like, the AllStar, like, honestly, it's really good in its current state. Like, you don't need to reload with this thing. Like, you can just, like, fight an enemy and won't need to worry about reloading. And you can just do bursts without, don't need to, like, overheat, reload the weapon or whatever. Like, yeah. And also a thing that was noticed is that, like, projectiles, and this is actually what the game merchant point out, that, like, the projectile size or the bullet size is really large, which can make it, like, easy headshots. And yeah, that's just really nice. Also really good with this thing. Like, I would say it is, like, it does have a really, like, slow draw time or whatever, but so you'd probably want to keep looking out for standard stock. But yeah, it's really strong. Just look at that. And there's a lot of unique characteristics to this weapon that just make it underrated as well. Like, again, the overheat function, and you're not needing to reload, and the big bullet sizes. Yeah. Next season, which is like in 5 days, the All-Star will be able to take out barrel mods and will have extended energy mags placed on it, and that'll be for like making it so the overheat time is longer or whatever. But yeah, use the All-Star because it is insane. Next, let's move on to the shotguns, starting off with the Mozambique. Let me get rid of all the engine ammo. Yeah, the Mozambique, in my opinion, it's a little bit underrated. It can be a pretty decent sidearm, like, honestly. Like, if you, like, put all your shots into the enemy, they're still not dead, the Mozambique will just finish the job. And it's, like, it has a decent range on it as well, despite it being, like, a little mini shotgun. Like, you see that distance. Look. And I only wasted 5 bullets, and the maximum magazine is 6. But yeah, if you manage to like hit your shots on this weapon, like honestly, it can become really deadly. Well, I wouldn't say it's like the deadliest weapon in the game, but it can be a frying machine if you have it as like a secondary and like one other really powerful weapon. It can be really good in arenas, honestly. Yeah, I would say the Mozambique's a bit underrated. Just because like it can be a really good secondary and such. Yeah. Next up is the Peacekeeper. Now I think the Peacekeeper is like a really good shotgun. Personally, I think it might be the best shotgun in like the entire game. But I think the one thing that kind of makes it a little bit iffy is like the skill gap on it. Because, like, it can be a little bit inconsistent at times, honestly. But it does feel really good to, like, hit a shot with this thing. And then just crack somebody down with it. And I think one thing that kind of makes it more overrated for me is, like... Okay. Is, like, this little... It's how it, like, has to cock before it, like, shoots, and that can make it a little bit inconsistent. So you'd definitely want to be on like the hunt for, because that's what like makes it a bit overrated, is just how slow the lever action can be, like, especially off drop. That can be a little bit annoying if you're just in a fight and then like, because of that, like, yeah. If you don't hit your shots, that'll make it a bit worse. Otherwise, the Peacekeeper is a really good gun. I think it leans a little bit overrated, though, in terms of, like, some functions or whatever. But it's still really good. Really amazing weapon. Next up is the EVA 8. In my opinion, the EVA 8 is, like, right in the center. Like, I think all of us think it's a really strong shotgun. Now, I personally say that it's a little bit better than the Peacekeeper, just because like, the fire rate is a lot quicker. Like, you don't need to like have that little lever action like in between shots. You can just keep on firing and just decimate the enemy. But yeah, you will have to like really track your shots well with the EVA. But otherwise, like, it's still like a really great weapon to pick up and frag with, and you don't need to ADS to like shoot the shots or whatever, because it can be pretty consistent. Next up is the Mastiff. Now I might get a little bit flamed for this, but I think the Mastiff's a bit underrated. Like, it can still be a really crazy weapon, but I would say it has a little bit higher of a skill gap than the Peacekeeper, because like ADS is like what you have to do with like the Mastiff in order to like have a good consistent shot that can wreck enemies. Like, this is a more up close and personal weapon that you gotta be using in order to like do really well with it. It can still be really good, like, honestly. More so in the right hands, and if you're pushing and being aggressive, because I think that's what's going to be good for you're using this weapon, But yeah, in my opinion, it's a little underrated. And the Mastiff has always been like one of my favorite weapons, like in the game. Like I kind of like a little bit, not really into the weapon though, but it's still decent. You just got to be able to land your shots well, ADS, and be aggressive. And next up, the compound bow. Now I think we all know like the power of this weapon, honestly. Like it can be really powerful. Although the one thing that makes it a little bit dumber weapon to use is that the skill gap is high on this thing. Like it's a high skill, high reward weapon. It can be really disgusting. Like if you manage to land all those shots. I haven't really been practicing with the bow lately though. I probably should though because it's like a really high skilled weapon. And I guess you could compare it to the one a little bit in terms of like the skill ceiling and such. But yeah, I'd probably say it leans towards overrated due to the fact that it can be a really high skill weapon to use and you really gotta be precise with your shots. But this thing with like Shattercaps is kind of underrated though. So yeah, Shattercaps I think is a little underrated, but just in terms of like the weapon overall, I feel like you just get its skill gap is a bit high, so that's what makes me think it's a little bit overrated. But yeah, if you manage to hit your shots, this thing is just disgusting. Obviously, that's not a good example of that. Well, anyways, let's now move on to the final three of the care package weapons, starting off with Ziprowler. Now, I think the Prowler is going to be coming out of the care packages next season, which is going to be awesome. But I think as a care package weapon, well, I think all the care package weapons are overrated. Don't judge. The reason why is mostly because of the reserve they have. Like, it's just not worth picking up. But honestly, the care package weapons are just really good. And the Prowler is really good. The Prowler I'd actually probably say is the best care package. Because it does a really good DPS. And having like the 2 fire modes gives you a good personal preference. And honestly, dude, the hip fire pretty underrated. Like a recoil can be a little hard with full auto, but it's a really good gun, Ziprowler, and I can't wait for it to get out of the care package, just because like it'll be so fun to use again. Oh, I just did super god. Next up, the triple take. To be honest, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot about the triple take, like over time because it's in the care package, but it's a deadly weapon. Like honestly, it is very deadly, and probably the deadliest marksman weapon currently in the game. Probably really because it's a care package weapon. But the damage values are just insane on it. And you can really just destroy enemies. I don't know if much should be said. But I'd probably say it's a little underrated as of now, since it's in the care package and it's really disgusting. Next up is the Craver. Now personally I think the Craver is a little bit overrated, primarily because it's like a really high skill weapon. Like you need to be really on point with shots. You need to have calm, patience, and good aim to absolutely destroy with this thing. Like the patience part. Until like the crosshairs, I go over the enemy, and then fire away. Okay, that sucked. But honestly, if you do manage to hit your Craver shots, like it feels super rewarding. Like hitting those Craver shots is underrated. But overall, I'd probably say it's a little bit overrated just because of that high skill ceiling. Like it's a little bit more high skilled than the Sense, I'd say. So that's just my personal opinion. Craver though, it's deadly. if you hit your shots. Alright, I think that's going to be all for this video. We have went through every single weapon so far. And yeah. There's quite a few underrated weapons, quite a few perfect weapons, some overrated weapons. I'd probably say like the most popular weapons, like the R99 Peacekeeper, are a bit overrated. But yeah. This was an interesting video to do. And yeah. Anyways, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a like, and if you're brand new here to the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you can get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Also, I have a Discord server, link will be in the description. I also have a Guilded server, so if you're looking for any servers to join on there, I'll leave that link in the description too. Also, be sure to follow my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/3onx. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about all the weapons, which ones are underrated, overrated, or perfect in the comments. See you later. Bye-bye.